Looking for a cardigan that turns every outfit into a statement? Hey guys, I'm T and welcome to the channel. Today's tutorial is all about drama and detail. We're making a full-length crochet duster with Suzette bodice, flowing rib panels, and chic front tie closure. Whether if you layer over jeans and a tee or dress it up for a night out, this cardigan adds instant impact. If you're new here, welcome. I share modern crochet patterns and tutorials every Wednesday and Sunday, so tell a friend, tap the bell, and subscribe so you never miss an upload. And if you enjoy the video, give it a thumbs up, or 2 thumbs down if you don't. Either way, it's a great way to support the channel and help keep these tutorials free. Any category 4 yarn will work. I used a total of 415 grams, that's 935 yards if you're stateside, along with 5 and 6 millimeter hooks. Pattern link below. Use code TCDDIY for a discount on orders over $9.99. Stay to the end for this week's giveaway. We're using 5 stitches for this cardigan. They're on screen now. Pause to check them out. This tutorial is for a size small. You can adjust it for your size, and we explain how to in the video. So without further ado, here's how to crochet your own duster cardigan. Getting this cardigan started, we're making the cutest Suzette stitch cups. Grab our category 4 yarn, make a slip knot, then grab our 5 millimeter hook. First up, let's talk shaping. We want our cups to start with both the point for the closure, and I think it gives a really good look for the chest paired with the increases coming up. So to get them started, we're all going to start with a chain 1. Once we have that chain, we're going to block off that last chain, then do a chain 2. Now the chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain, and we're all going to start with an increase of 5 half double crochets into that first chain. Doing our first row, we're going to yarn over. Into that chain that we blocked off, or the third chain from our hook, we are going to insert, pull through to get 3 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through all 3. That is our first half double crochet, and we're going to be doing a total of 5. So there was 1, yarn over into that same chain with our second, yarn over, same chain with our third, same with our fourth, same with our 5th half double crochet, and now our first row is completed. Now this is starting the same way for everyone, no matter what size we're making. So after that chain 5, we are all going to chain 2 and flip. Now we're going to do some increases for that shape that we were talking about. So what we're going to do is yarn over. For this pattern, whenever we're starting a row with an increase, we're always going to do an increase of 4 half double crochets into that first stitch. So yarn over into that first stitch with 1 half double, same first stitch with our second, same first stitch with our third, same first stitch with our fourth. Now we're going to Suzette till we have 2 stitches left. Now the Suzette stitches are super simple. It's just a single and a double into the same stitch. So right after that increase, we are going to skip that following stitch, and into the next we are going to insert in through there with 1 single crochet, into that same stitch with 1 double crochet. And since we only had 5 stitches for our previous row, we're actually at the end of our row. We should all have just 2 stitches left. What we're going to do from here is put 1 half double crochet into that last stitch to close off this row. So yarn over, we are going to skip that second to last stitch, and into the last insert with just 1 half double crochet. Now before we move on with our row 3, we want to make sure that we're inserting our stitch marker into the top of the row that we just completed, and that's going to indicate where the top of our cup is going to be. Now that our stitch marker is into place, we're all going to get started with our row 3, so chain 2 and flip. Now like I said, every row is going to start with an increase of 4 half double crochets. So yarn over into that first stitch with 1, same stitch with 2, same stitch with 3, same stitch with 4, and again Suzette stitch until we have 2 stitches left. So after that increase, we're going to skip 1 stitch into the next with 1 single and 1 double crochet. And since we have 4 stitches left, we need to continue on till we have 2 stitches left. We're going to skip 1 stitch into the next with another single and a double crochet. We're at the end of our row 3. We should all have 2 stitches left. We're going to close it off with an increase of 3 half doubles. So yarn over into that last stitch with 1 half double crochet, into that same stitch with a second, and same stitch with a third half double crochet. Now just to give y'all a quick visual of what we're working on, we're currently working on the cup of our piece, so we're working from the center of our chest out. And what we're doing is increase along the top of every row. That'll lead all the way up to our straps. And then along the bottom, we're increasing into every other to get a smooth curve that leads to our underbust. That gives us that really nice shape that we were talking about. So let's do the following 2 rows together just so we get the 2 row repeat down. So whenever we're getting started on an even number row, we're going to chain 2 and flip. Now, like I said, whenever we're starting a row off for this portion, we're going to start it with an increase of 4 half doubles. So yarn over, we're going to increase, we're going to put 4 half double crochets all into that first stitch, then Suzette stitch down, leaving the last 2. So after that increase, we're going to skip 1 stitch into that next with a single and a double. Now, some quick tips when it comes to doing our Suzette stitches. After we finish up a Suzette stitch, we're always going to skip that following stitch because that double crochet that we just worked into that same stitch actually counts as that stitch. If we work into there, we're accidentally increasing. So we're going to always skip that following stitch and into the next, insert with a single and also a double crochet. And then also, we want to make sure that each of our Suzette stitches is worked into our previous row's single crochet to get the texture that we want. So since we are skipping that next stitch, we can tell that that's a double crochet from our previous row because it is a little bit taller. Into that next stitch, which is a little bit shorter, therefore a single crochet, we're going to insert with a single and a double crochet and just continue on with our Suzette stitches until we have 2 stitches left. So we're now at the end of our row 4. So whenever we're closing off the row along the bottom, for this portion, we're going to put just 1 half double crochet into that last stitch. That is our row 4, and just to let you guys know, since we all started off the same, at the end of our row 4, we should have a total of 13 stitches. To get started on our row 5, we're going to chain 2 and flip, and for this portion, start off every row with an increase of 4 half doubles into that first stitch. After that increase, skip a stitch into the next with our first Suzette stitch, then continue to Suzette stitch all the way down until we all have 2 stitches left. Our row 5 is nearly complete. We should all have 2 stitches left. At the end of every odd number row, so whenever we're along the stitch marker end, we're always going to close it off with an increase of 3 half double crochets into that last stitch. So there's 1, into that with a second, same with a third. And at the end of our row 5, we should all have a total of 17 stitches. So what we're going to do from here is continue to repeat our 2 previous rows until we now have a portion that can reach from the center of our chest, making sure that we're placing the point at mid-bust, until we have a cup that can now scoop underneath our underbust. So roughly where an underwire would sit, then I'll meet everyone back right after an odd number row, so that will be along the top. Then we can move on with the width of our cup from there. We've just completed the height of our cup. I have a total of 9 rows. This width is just about 3 inches or 8 centimeters, or my increase height is roughly 6.5 inches or 17 centimeters. Now we're going to do just a few more rows to give us more width for the cup and also leading up to a point that will eventually lead to the strap. Now before we do that, we want to make sure that we're inserting a stitch marker into the beginning of that last row so we know where the curve starts and ends. So I'm going to go ahead and insert my stitch marker into here, and I wanted to know if you guys have any custom stitch markers, because I used to use some other ones that were like these little loops, but they would often fall out. And I saw some new ones that were anime themed, and they're really, really cute, but they had like a little clip on them, and they were kind of small, so I don't know if I would like that more or less. But that's enough of my rambling. Let's continue on with our next row. And the following row is actually going to be done the same way that the following row would be done. So since we're along the top, we're going to chain 2, flip our work. Start the row with an increase, Suzette all the way down, and close it off with just 1 half double crochet into that last stitch. So we've made our way down to the bottom of our work. Now from here, we don't need to increase along the bottom anymore, so now we're going to chain 1 and flip. So now we're just going to start the row with a Suzette. So into that first stitch, so the top of that half double crochet with a single and a double. And from here, we're going to keep it cute, keep it simple, and continue on with our Suzette stitches all the way up, leaving the last 2 stitches. Then we're going to still increase along the top. We've made our way up, leaving the last 2 stitches. Like I said, close off the row with an increase of 3 half double crochets all into that last stitch. We made our way all the way back up to the top, and look, we're almost done with the front panel. Now what we're going to do from here is just continue to repeat these 2 previous rows until we now have a portion that can reach from center chest, making sure that the point is still staying at mid-bust, until we have a portion that can reach from the center of our chest over to the corner of our underarm. Then right after that, we're just going to do our underarm, our back, double it, and then we're going to be all done. So I'll meet everyone back right after an even number of rows that will be along the bottom. Then we'll finish up everything else really quick. The width of our cup has been completed. I have a total of 14 rows. This width is just about 4.5 inches or 11 centimeters, or the height that I have is 9.5 inches or 24 centimeters. Now we're going to do some decreases to have a smooth curve underneath our underarm that leads straight to our back. That's going to be pretty simple. What we're going to do is place this up to ourselves, making sure that the point is still at center chest, mid bust, and this blunt portion along the bottom is still at our under bust, so where an underwire would lay. We're going to insert our stitch marker into any even numbered stitch from the top that's right at the corner of our underarm. Now I've inserted my stitch marker into the 14th stitch from the top, that's roughly 3 inches or 8 centimeters. So just chain 1, Suzette all the way up, leaving 4 before our stitch marker. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches right before our stitch marker. Now we're all going to do a decrease of 3 double crochets, so yarn over. Skip that next stitch, and into the next we're going to insert, pull through, next stitch, pull through, and next stitch, pull through to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops on our hook. Yarn over, pull through the first 4 loops, leaving us with 2 loops on our hook, then yarn over, pull through 2. Then our following row will be a non-decrease row, so we're going to chain 1, flip our work, and Suzette all the way down, closing off the row with just 1/2 double crochet. Our first 2 underarm rows are completed. What we're going to do is continue to repeat these 2 rows until the top of this underarm portion now sits roughly 1 inch underneath our underarm, because we want to make sure that we're leaving enough room so it doesn't rub up on us once when it's completed and we're out and about doing our thing. So make sure that it's nice and comfy, placing the cup still at center chest, mid bust. Once we have that last even numbered row completed, then we're going to move on with just a straight shot of our back together from there. The underarm's all done. Now we're going to move straight into the back. Before we do that though, we want to insert our stitch marker into the top of that last row just so we know where the underarm ends. Then we're just going to do Suzette stitch rows, no increases, no decreases. So just because I want to chit chat for a second, we're going to chain 1, flip our work, and just do the next row together. And now just Suzette stitch all the way down, just closing off the row with 1/2 double crochet, so just like the previous row. Now I actually just realized that this is our 600th pattern that we're about to put out. I just want to step in really quick and say that it has been a wild ride and it's a lot of fun, and I actually can't thank you guys enough for being here and supporting us. So thank you to you guys. You guys are the best. Every kind word, every tag, every stitch that y'all made, it means the world to us, and we cannot wait to make a bunch more, probably a couple hundred more. So our first back panel row is all done. We're going to continue on with this row until we now have a portion that can reach from center chest all the way around over to the center of our back. Once we have that done, don't cut after the first one, just in case if we do have to adjust once we get the second one done, but put that one off to the side, make a second one that is exactly the same, then we can meet back so we can seam it up and actually get completed with the top half of this piece. We have just completed the rest of our back panel. Now it's not quite a back panel, it's more like a back section since it's all connected, but either way the total amount of rows that I have is 37, and now my total width is just about 12 inches or 30 centimeters. Now I didn't do a chain up, a one and cut, because once we have one of them completed, we are going to make a second panel. Then once we seam it up, we can try it on and then we can adjust whether if we need to add or take away some rows from there. But the second one will be done exactly the same way. Once we have both of them done, we're then going to place them on top of each other again. Then we're going to do our single crochet seam all the way down. So we're going to insert our hook into the corner stitch of both the front and the back panel and pull our working yarn through. Now because I didn't cut my other side, all I did was just insert a stitch marker into there, but if it is the right size, once we get there we can just pull and then cut. But to do our single crochet seam, we're just going to find that first stitch into the front panel, insert, first stitch into the back panel, insert, and single crochet. Again, next stitch into the front, next stitch into the back, single crochet everything together. So this is super duper simple. Go ahead and make your way all the way down. Try our piece on, making sure that everything is pulling and fitting the way it needs to. But if you guys need to add a row or take away a row, just make sure we do it on both sides. Seam completed. Everything's fitting nicely. Now we're going to get started on the strap. So for the strap, we're going to make sure that the seam is along the inside because this is the inside of our piece. Then we're going to start with our single crochet row. So making sure that the seam is along the inside, so like that. We're going to insert our hook into the top corner stitch of our cup and work our way down the underarm, across the back, and back up to this point with a single crochet row. And we do want to make sure that we're showing the front of the single crochet row just to make sure that everything is nice and clean. So since we have a couple stitches to work into before we get started on our underarm portion, insert your yarn onto your hook. Put one single into every stitch, then once we reach our first side row, I'll meet you back. I've just singled all the way down and have reached my first side row. Now, working into the top of our side rows, we're going to be alternating between 1 to 2 single crochets in through every side row, starting with 2 single crochets. So this is my first side row right here. The side row is basically just the edge of that Suzette stitch row, and this one should be a decrease. So we're going to find that little decrease cluster and find that top loop. There's not going to be an actual loop, so we're just going to have to find one and commit and insert with 2 single crochets. So there's one into that same top loop with a second. Now the next side row should be a little bit easier. It should be this side row right here. It's not really a cluster to work into, but it is the edge of a row. So we're going to find that top loop and insert with just one. Let's do this again. This is my next side row. So we're going to find a loop, insert in through there with 2 single crochets. Then this is my next side row. I'm going to insert my hook in through there with just one. Now this is my last side row for my underarm, and that is the stitch that my stitch marker is in, so I'm going to take that out for now, but if you're not at that point yet, just continue on. But when we reach that last underarm side row, we're just going to continue. That next side row should be our 2 single crochets, because that's the stitch sequence. So insert with one, then with a second, into the next with just one. These should be a little bit easier since the ones with 2 single crochets should be a little bit bigger of a gap, and just continue working away all the way across our back, up the underarm on the other side. Then once we reach our stitches on the outside of our other cup, just 1 single crochet into each of those. Then don't cut because we can work straight into that chain together from there. So our single crochet prep row for our strap nearly completed. We have made our way all the way down and around and up to this corner. Now before we get started on making the actual chain length, we're going to want to try our piece on, making sure that everything is sitting and fitting where it needs to sit. Then we're just going to insert our stitch markers into any stitch within the back where you'd like for the strap to connect. Now counting from my first single crochet that we did all the way down and around, I inserted my stitch marker into the 42nd stitch from that first single crochet on both sides. Then, since off camera I went ahead and already made my chain, I made a chain of 45, and that's just about 10.5 inches or 27 centimeters. Then once we have our chain, then insert it in through that stitch marker stitch. Double check and make sure the chain isn't twisted. So looking at the back, all we're going to do is slip stitch it into that stitch marker stitch. So just yarn over and pull through everything on our hook and then cut. Then we're going to make the same chain but on the other side. So to do the other chain, we are going to insert our hook into the top corner stitch of our other cup, make the same chain, slip stitch it into that next stitch marker stitch, then we can work on our front tie. Straps, check. Next thing we're going to do is the front tie. So we're actually going to do a little bit of prep for the front tie first, just so that we don't have extra ends to weave in later, because that's my main goal, is to not have to weave in any extra ends. So what we're going to do is try our piece on, then insert your hook into the corner stitch of one of our cups, it doesn't matter which one, and just make the chain the length that you would like for the front tie to be. Now you can make this as long or short as you want, that's completely up to you. We just want to make this prep chain so we know exactly how long we'd like the chain to be. Then once we have that chain, we're going to work that chain off the base first and then just work it straight into that following row. So I'm going to go ahead and make my chain just to double check the length that I want. I've just figured out the front tie length that I want. I want roughly 17.5 inches. That's just about 45 centimeters because I would like a decent tail end. So I went ahead and made a chain 75. Now that I know I would like my chain to be 75, I'm going to take this chain apart, start another chain, and then once we have that chain, we're going to connect it into the corner stitch. I have my chain, and now I'm going to insert my hook into the corner stitch of one of my cups. Then we're going to put 2 single crochets into every side row. So we're going to pull our working yarn through and single crochet. That single crochet counts as our connection, but also as one of our stitches. But that single crochet is just worked into the point of our cup. Now into our first side row, we're going to put 2 single crochets in through there. So find that top loop and insert starting with 2 single crochets. And since I have a tail end, I am going to weave that in as I go because I don't want to do that later. So there's my second single crochet into that first side row. Let's do that again. This is my following side row. I'm going to find that top loop and insert with 1 single, Same top loop, insert with a second single crochet. And we're putting 2 single crochets into every side row because the increases that we had along the edge of our row is just a little bit taller. So we want to make sure that we're honoring that height that we did with our increases. We're just going to continue on working into every side row, and then I'll meet you back once we reach our chain. We've single crocheted into that last side row. Now from here, just put 1 single crochet into every chain. We've just single crocheted our way down our chain. Now we're going to continue on with this row, putting 1 single crochet into every stitch. Then work our way up our chain, make our way down our cup, then close off the row with making the same chain that we made on the side. So for me, a chain 75. Once we have all of that done, do a chain up of 1 and cut. Then we can move on to the fun part, which is the bottom. Straps are all done. Now we're going to prep for the bottom length. So we're going to make sure that our work is still flipped right side out, right side up. We're going to insert our hook into the corner stitch of one of our cups, and we're going to single crochet all the way around. We're going to pull our working yarn through, do a chain up of 1 to secure. Then we're going to alternate between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row. Then finding our first side row, insert in through there, starting with just 1 single crochet. Into that next side row, which is this gap, insert into there with 2 single crochets, and we're going to continue doing this, making our way all the way around. Now, as a really quick tip, once we reach our stitch marker side row, make sure that we're still inserting our stitch marker into there. Then I'll meet you back when we're worked into our last side row. We've just single crocheted all the way across the bottom. Now just to close off the row, we are going to slip stitch it into the edge of that first single crochet that we made when we worked our way up the cup. So we're going to just slip stitch into one of those loops. There's not going to be an actual loop for us to work into. So we're just going to find one, do a chain up of 1, and cut. We're doing it that way just so it's a little bit cleaner so that it doesn't have a break in between the strap and the bottom single crochet. Why did I put a stitch marker in there? Hold on. Now the single crochet row is completed. We are almost there. All of the heavy lifting is done. Now we're on the last stretch, and now we're just going to kind of coast through the bottom because it's going to be pretty simple. Now what we're going to do from here is try our piece on. We're going to make sure that we're tying it the way that we would normally tie it once when the whole thing is completed. So if you would like for it to touch at the point, make sure it's touching at the point. Then we're going to insert our stitch markers into the stitches where we'd like for the side slit to be, because we would like the most amount of mobility. Now I would recommend roughly at about mid underarm, we're just going to insert our stitch markers into there, making sure that's the same amount of stitches on both sides from the point of our cup. So for me, I went ahead and inserted my stitch marker into the 28th stitch from the point on both sides. Now from here, we're going to flip our work over, making sure that it's still flipped right side out. Switch out to our 6mm hook because we'd like to have a little bit more flow to our piece. And we're going to insert our hook into the corner stitch of one of our cups. Now from here, we're going to make a chain the length that we'd like for this duster to be, keeping in mind that we are going to have a little bottom detail and a bottom band as well. Since I'd like for mine to be fairly long, I'm going to start by making a chain of 85, and that's just about 23 inches or 58 centimeters. Our chain is completed. Now we're going to single crochet all the way back. So block off that last chain and do a chain 1. That chain 1 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Then into the chain that we blocked off, we're going to insert with a single crochet. So this is super duper simple. Just make your way down with 1 single crochet into every chain, leaving the last chain. Now I know that working into the chain is kind of a pain to work into, but once we make our way down, the rest is going to be easy breezy from here. Then just as a heads up, once we have a few rows completed, the corners may start to curl up a little bit. That's completely normal. Now we are going to fix that by steaming it at the very end, but I'd suggest to wait until the entire bottom band is completed because sometimes the bottom band helps even it out for us. We made our way down with our single crochet row. We all should have left that last stitch. Now from here, we are going to skip that last chain and just work straight into the body. So skip over that last chain, and finding that next available stitch into the base, we're going to insert in through there. Now the slip stitch into the base doesn't actually count as a stitch. That's just a connect. And now that this row 1 is completed, we should have 1 less stitch than our chains made. Now from here, we're going to slip stitch up that following stitch into the base. That doesn't count as a stitch either. Now we're going to flip our work and we're going to decrease, which is just skipping that stitch that's nearest to the base again. So we're going to skip that first stitch from our previous row. So making sure we're not counting those slip stitches into the base, that's just to connect. We're going to skip that first stitch. Then into the next, we're going to insert with 1 back loop single crochet. Then from here, continue with 1 back loop single into every stitch. Now, since we already know how to do our back loop singles, I won't bore you guys with those details. At the end of the row, we're just going to chain 1, flip our work, 1 back loop single, working our way all the way back up. Then I'll meet you back at the end of our row 3 when we have 1 stitch left right before the base. Our first 3 rows are nearly completed. We made our way down. We have left that last stitch. Now, just like how we did our previous row, we're going to skip that last stitch and just automatically work into the base just to connect it. So slip stitch into there. That slip stitch, remember, doesn't actually count as a stitch. Then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch up that following stitch into the base, flip our work, and it's going to be a repeat. So just to get this row started, we are going to make sure we're not working into any of those slip stitches, but also skip that first stitch. Then into the next, insert with 1 back loop single crochet, and continue with 1 back loop single crochet into every stitch. And from here, we're just going to continue to repeat these 2 previous rows until we're worked into our following stitch marker stitch. Once we are, I'll meet everyone back, but since I already have my other side completed, I'm actually just going to switch over to that so we can do our following section together. So this one's already completed. This is what it should be looking like so far, and I am worked into my stitch marker stitch. Now from here, we're just going to do more back loop single crochet rows, no increases, no decreases now, until we reach our next stitch marker stitch. So just to do these first 2 rows together, since I'm along the base, I'm going to slip stitch up that following stitch into the base, that is per usual. Then from here, I'm going to flip my work. Then we're going to single crochet it on down, so finding that last stitch from our previous row, not working into any of those slip stitches into the base. In through there goes our first back loop single. Then from here, continue with 1 back loop single into every stitch. Now at the end of the row, we're going to chain 1, flip our work, and put 1 back loop single into every stitch all the way back up. Then I'll meet you back once more. Our first 2 non-increase, non-decrease rows are completed. We made our way all the way up working into every stitch. Now we're going to connect it into the base, and just like our previous row, slip stitch into that next stitch into the base, doesn't count as a stitch, slip stitch into that next available stitch into the base to work our way up to the following row, also doesn't count as a stitch, and back loop single all the way down. Continue to repeat these 2 non-increase, non-decrease rows until we're worked into our stitch marker stitch. Now the stitch marker should be roughly where you want the slit to be, because remember we inserted that into mid underarm, but if you want it a little bit more forward, a little bit more back, you can adjust it by either adding rows or taking away. That's completely up to you. But if you do it on one side, just make sure you do it on the other side as well. But once we have the front panel width that we want, do a chain up 1 and cut, then repeat on the other side, then I'll meet you back. Alrighty, we are back. We have just completed the front panel portion of the length, I guess, and I did reach my stitch marker stitch. Now from here, we're going to work on the back, but the back is going to be done no increases, no decreases. So pretty much the same way that we just did this second half of the front panel. So what we're going to do is insert our hook into that same stitch that our last row was worked into. Then we're going to make a chain for the same amount of stitches that we have for our last front panel row, not the beginning, because remember that is long. So for my last row, I have a total of 72 stitches. So making sure we're still using our 6mm hook, I'm going to make a chain of 72, then just do my back loop single crochet rows, connecting it into the base the same way that we've been doing this whole time, making way all the way around until we're worked into our following stitch marker stitch on the other side. Then we're going to cut. After that, we are then in the home stretch. We're just going to do our bottom detail and band. So we are back, our 2 front panels, and our back panel is now complete. Now from here, we're going to work on the bottom detail and the bottom band, and then we're going to seam everything up, and then we're going to be all done. So super duper quick, super duper simple. So how we're going to get started on the bottom detail first is make sure that our work is flipped right side out, then insert our hook into one of the bottom corner stitches of any one of our panels. We're going to insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, and do a chain up of 1 to secure. Then from here, we're going to put 1 single crochet into every side row. So starting with that first side row, so the one that our chain 1 is likely in, we're going to find that top loop and insert starting with just 1 single crochet. Then into our next side row, this is mine right here, find that top loop, insert with just 1 single crochet. And that's pretty much it for this section. We should have the same amount of single crochets as rows that we have for this panel. Then once we don't have any more side rows left to work into, I'll meet everyone back so we can work on the Suzette stitch detail. But really quickly, the amount of single crochets that we have needs to end on an odd number. So if you need to, go ahead and add an additional stitch into that last side row. Our single crochets are all completed. Now we're going to do our Suzette stitch detail. Now these are just going to be solid Suzette stitch rows, no increases and no decreases, so chain 1 and flip our work. So just to do the first row, we're going to find that first stitch, insert with 1 single, 1 double crochet, then skip a stitch into the next, 1 single, 1 double, and continue on with our Suzette stitch until we have 2 stitches left. We're adding this Suzette stitch detail just to tie it in with the cups, plus it's super adorable, so why not? Our row 1 is nearly complete. We should all have 2 stitches left. Now all we're going to do is close off the row with 1 half double crochet, and that's it. We should have the same amount of stitches as our previous row, and from here we're going to continue to chain 1, flip our work, and do our Suzette stitch until we get the height of the Suzette stitch detail that we want. Now you can have 1 row, just a few rows, you can have a whole clump if you guys want to, that's completely up to you. But either way, I'll meet everyone back right after an odd number row, and that is going to be including that first single crochet row, then cut. Our Suzette stitch detail is complete. Now including that single crochet row, I have a total of 5 rows. Now after that last row, we did do a chain up 1 and cut. Then we're going to insert our hook into that first stitch that we made for our previous row. Then we're going to make a chain the length that we like the bottom band to be. I'd like for mine to be just about 6 inches or 15 centimeters, so a pretty substantial size bottom band. So I'm going to insert my yarn on my hook and start by making a chain 22. Chain completed. Now we're going to do our first row, so block off that last chain and do a chain 3. There's 1, 2, 3. That's our turning chain. That doesn't actually count as a stitch. Now we're going to double crochet all the way down. So yarn over into that chain that we blocked off with the 4th chain from our hook, insert with 1 double crochet. So pull through 2, pull through 2. We already know how to do our doubles, so continue with 1 double crochet into every chain. Now some of you may be wondering, why did we cut right after that last row? Couldn't we have just gone straight in with our chain for the bottom band together? And the quick answer is yes, we totally could have, but showing the connection this way shows the bulk of the slip stitch connections in the back, and that makes the overall look a lot cleaner. Row 1 completed. Now we're going to connect it into the base. So how we're going to connect this row into the base is we're going to count up the next 2 available stitches into the base. There's 1, there's 2. Into that second stitch, we're going to insert with a slip stitch. Now our row 1 is completed. Remember that that slip stitch into the base doesn't count as a stitch. Then we're going to work our way up to the following row. So slip stitch up the following 2 stitches into the base. None of those slip stitches into the base count as a stitch now. Now we're going to flip our work and put 1 back loop double crochet into every stitch. So yarn over into that last stitch from our previous row, not working into any of those slip stitches into the base. We're going to insert into that back loop with 1 double crochet, next stitch with another double crochet, and that's pretty much it. We're going to continue with 1 back loop double into every stitch. Then at the end of the row, chain 3, flip our work, put 1 back loop double crochet into every stitch once more. Then I'll meet you back at the end of the row to connect it all together once more. Our first 3 rows are nearly completed. Now we're going to connect it into the base. So what we're going to do is again count up the next 2 available stitches into the base, just like our previous row. Insert with a slip stitch. That slip stitch still doesn't count as a stitch. Then just to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch up the next 2 stitches, flip our work, and repeat. We're going to continue to repeat these 2 previous rows till we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, cut and I'll meet you back. Our bottom band is all done. Now from here we're going to do the same thing for the other front panel that we have and also for the back panel. Same rules apply for the back panel as well. Same Suzette stitch detail, make the same chain for the back panel and back loop doubles so we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, chain up of 1 and cut, then we'll be complete with the bottom detail. Last thing we're going to do is seam everything together. Doing our side seam, we're going to now flip our work wrong side out, meaning the seam that we have for the back is going to be along the outside because we want all of these seams to be along the same side. Then, still using upside down our 6mm hook, we're going to do the same single crochet seam. So try our piece on. We're going to insert our stitch marker into any stitch for the length of the bottom portion where we'd like for the seam to be. Now you can make this as high or as low as you'd like. That is completely up to you. I went ahead and inserted my stitch marker into the 52nd stitch from the top, and that is just about 14 inches or 35 centimeters. Now from here, we're just going to insert our hook into that first stitch into one of our panels, first stitch into the other panel, and just single crochet all the way down until we reach our stitch marker. Then repeat on the other side, then I'll meet everyone back. So we have just completed seaming every single thing up. We are all done. Now from here we are all done. The last thing we have to do is simply weave in all of our ends. And there you have it. Hope y'all enjoyed the tutorial. Enter this week's pattern giveaway by telling us if you've ever done a TikTok or Instagram challenge. I have never. Details for the giveaway down below. Join us on Instagram, Pinterest, or Twitter. Those links are down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Catch you on the next one. Bye.